The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Ski Sundown in nearby New Hartford, Connecticut. Groomed twice daily for optimal skiing conditions, both day and night. Ticket information available at skisundown.com. Winter made better.
Welcome to Fabulous 413. I'm Klee Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte.
I remember how this works.
Do you?
I don't know.
I barely do.
We are bright-eyed and bushy-tushed and back from our winter break.
None the worse for the wear.
Apparently not.
Well, later in the show, we'll check in on Greenfield's mayor, Ginny DeSorgher, as her first year in office has just come to a close.
But first, the Golden Globes were last night, and although I personally do not care for awards in general, someone we have on the show weekly has a slightly different take.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Well, here we are once again, back at the Amherst kitchen table of Hampshire College astronomer Dr. Salman Hameed, Mr. Universe. It is a whole new season, and that season is award season, which kicked off last night with the Golden Globes. And since you are on the board of Amherst Cinema, we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we are going to talk about astronomy, too, and the Parker Solar Probe. Where do you want to go first? You want to go Solar Probe or you want to go Golden Globe?
Well, I mean, depends upon what is more important.
Golden Globes it is.
There you go.
Okay.
I agree with you.
First of all, you and I are both huge fans of one of the big winners in television last night, Shogun.
Loved that show. And it was just so great. I mean, apart from the fact that, most of the show is in Japanese.
Yeah.
And
which I love about it. The original Shogun show was mostly in English.
they should not have done that. But this show was amazing, and all the three main characters in there got nominated, the Japanese actors. And A, I loved the fact that they won. B, loved their acceptance speeches.
They were great.
Even the first one came in and he had a translator next to him and didn't use the translator.
Uh-huh.
And then for the supporting actor, he came in and that was a joy to listen to his speech because he was just like genuinely surprised.
Wow, so maybe you don't know me. So I'm an actor from Japan. My name is Tadano Basano. Wow! Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I'm during the filming, so I have to come back to Tokyo tonight. Tomorrow morning I go to shooting again. So, but this is very big present for me. Thank you so much.
Also, he looks like 50 years younger than he looks like in the show. I couldn't believe how young that guy actually was.
Monty, that is magic. That is TV
Movie
magic.
You grow a beard and all of a sudden you look like you're an ancient Japanese samurai. It turns out you're just like a 20-something-year-old guy.
But if you haven't seen, so for people who are listening who haven't seen Shogun, give it a shot because there is something that I have a sort of like, right now on my mind, and that is that most of the shows on TV, there was an article about it in New York Times as well, are sort of like okay.
Yeah.
They're not great, they're not bad, and they're sort of like middle because that's how apparently with these algorithmic organized way of creating shows, they're kind of like in the middle level. But Shogun is not one of those shows. I mean, I thought Shogun was really excellent and the story was gripping and it really puts you in the context of Japanese culture in the 16th century.
I'll also say it has the sexiest non-sex scene I have ever seen in my entire life. It's unbelievable.
There was a spoiler.
Not saying exactly what's going on, but it's incredible. Okay, so you're on the board of Amherst Cinema. I was angry the whole time that The Brutalist hasn't been at Amherst Cinema yet, and The Brutalist won all sorts of awards. Are we going to be able to see this?
Yes, it is going to be at Amherst Cinema. So just hold on for a little bit,
Okay,
we try our best.
Look, my son prints out these ballots every award show, and we have to try to guess who's going to win. My son got 17 correct. I only got 11. But The Brutalist won all sorts of awards. I couldn't even give my honest input on it because I had no opportunity to see this movie.
Yeah.
But it won so many things.
But other than The Brutalist, most of the films actually have either played at Amherst Cinema or are still playing over there. So yes, but The Brutalist, if I remember correctly, I think it is coming in January, so this month.
Okay, good.
So it should be there. But I was a little bummed Anora didn't win any awards because I think that was an amazing film.
Saw that at Amherst Cinema. That was incredible.
But The Substance. Yes. That is weird, out there, and glad that Demi Moore won.
And Demi Moore's acceptance speech was unbelievable.
Really excellent.
I'm just in shock right now. I've been doing this a long time, like over 45 years, and this is the first time I've ever won anything as an actor. And I'm just so humbled and so grateful. And I'll just leave you with one thing that I think this movie is imparting is in those moments when we don't think we're smart enough or pretty enough or skinny enough or successful enough or basically just not enough. I had a woman say to me, just know you will never be enough, but you can know the value of your worth if you just put down the measuring stick. And so today, I celebrate this as a marker of my wholeness and of the love that is driving me and for the gift of doing something I love and being reminded that I do belong. Thank you so much.
And I'm glad Wicked won the fan one. I mean, I thought that the Witches of Wicked could have won, actor and supporting actor, but they didn't in their categories. But they did win the category cinematic and box office achievement.
And the surprises were good. And I also should say something actually that isn't playing at Amherst Cinema. I don't think I should plug it. But no, it's okay. But A Complete Unknown.
Yeah.
I thought Timothée Chalamet is amazing in that as Dylan. And he was nominated but didn't win.
Uh-huh. And you liked that?
I liked the film, yeah. And I liked his performance. I mean, I think, I love Dylan. And
I know you do. I love Chalamet. But I was like, I don't need more Chalamet in my life. Dune was plenty. But every person to a one, even the skeptics that have gone to see it, I will see it.
I mean, he's amazing. And Edward Norton as Pete Seeger, he's amazing as well. No, I think it's a good movie. It's not an amazing film.
Yeah.
It's a pretty straightforward story about that period of time in Dylan's life. But I think Timothée Chalamet is quite incredible.
Yeah, it was funny at the Golden Globes where they got Adam Sandler to say Timothée Chalamet in the classic Adam Sandler accent.
Your name sounds like something Adam Sandler would say. Chalamet. Timothée Chalamet. Oh, yes, Timothée Chalamet. I think Sandler's here. Sandler, can I get a Chalamet?
Chalamet.
Oh, Chalamet. A good Chalamet to you, sir.
Nikki Glaser, great job. I met her at Solid Sound, actually.
Oh, I didn't know
she
that.
was like a surprise guest at Solid Sound, not the last one, but the one before.
Okay.
There's the star report right there with the Golden Globes from last night as we've entered award season. But we are usually talking about astronomy.
And we will when we talk about the space probe that made the closest ever approach to our personal star for this galaxy, the Sun. When we continue our conversation with Hampshire College and Kainat Studios' Salman Hameed next.
And later, a look back at year one for Greenfield Mayor Ginny DeSorgher with the mayor herself.
Yay, you're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Uh-oh, Wookie. Okay, stop ticking, Wookie.
Come over here. You sit by my feet while we chat. With Hampshire College astronomer Dr. Salman Hameed.
I thought you had a great turn about, about stars, and now we're going to talk about our star.
Yeah, we are. The Sun. And the Parker Solar Probe. Parker Lewis can't lose. The Solar Probe.
So just before Christmas, on the 24th, Christmas Eve actually, it was the day of the Christmas Eve, there is a spacecraft that has been going around the sun and that we sent as humans, and it came the closest to the sun and survived. And this was a deliberate thing. It's not that, hey, it accidentally got closer, but this is one of the actually really interesting spacecraft. It's named after a solar scientist, Eugene Parker.
They didn't call it Icarus when they were going to try to get this thing to go so close to the sun?
They wanted it to work. I think that may have been one of the names, but they're like, we wanted to survive. And
have you ever seen, quick aside, the Ali G show? Where he interviews Neil Armstrong and he asks how long it will be before man can walk on the sun.
Do you think man will ever walk on the sun?
No. The sun is too hot. It is not a good place to go to.
What happens if they went in winter when the sun is cold?
The sun is not cold in the winter.
Yes, I have seen that one. But this spacecraft, we really want to know what causes solar storms, for example. That is crucial because this can cause huge disruptions in our satellites. They can, when you have these big solar storms, these high energy particles, which are in the solar wind, so those are protons, high energy protons and electrons, they can come in and wreak havoc with our instruments. And there have been big ones that have knocked out satellites, but so far we haven't had like huge event that we know historically have taken place. And there is one from the mid-19th century called the Carrington event, which knocked out telegraph machines at the time and things like that. And so now we're like, okay, we are so dependent on our space infrastructure in some sense that people are worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to understand, and this is also the case for astronauts, for example, going to the moon or to Mars. When you are in space, it's very hard for you to be protected from a solar storm. So we want to know. And now, we experienced some of those storms beautifully last year when you had the aurora, or northern lights, that we saw here in Amherst. And twice, in fact, last year. And normally they don't come this south, but they did. And
that's because the sun is in a more active period right now?
So sun goes through a cycle of 11-year cycle of active, and then it goes to a phase where it's not very active. Now, why is that the case? So, well, it has to deal with magnetic fields and things like that, but we have to understand what causes these. So Parker Solar Probe is specifically designed to understand what really happens when these storms at the sun happens. And how do these magnetic fields interact? How do they throw out, or in some sense you can think about, how do they whip out these charged particles that come out? Now there is a mystery alongside with that, and that is when you look at the sun, the solid part that you see, it's not solid, it's gases. It's just that that's where it becomes opaque. Mm-hmm. And that is called the photosphere. That is close to around 6,000 degrees.
Which doesn't seem like that hot.
But the gases above that, or meaning to say away from the center of the sun, then it becomes about 1,000,000 degrees.
That sounds hot.
That is the corona. But that is not opaque. But it's still, it gets hotter. So that's a puzzle that beyond the photosphere, if you go in towards the interior of the sun, the center of the sun, the core, that is around 10 million degrees.
Where hydrogen is burned into helium at temperatures of millions of degrees.
Where you have
as they might be giants and others have said in song.
The sun is a mass of incandescent gas, a gigantic nuclear furnace.
Where you have nuclear fusion going on. And then it gets cooler and cooler and cooler. And then you have this opaque region, which is around 6,000 degrees. You go like, okay, now you would expect things to get cooler after that. But that doesn't happen. And in fact, the gases actually are around 1,000,000 degrees. So there is a big puzzle. What heats up this corona? Now, this corona also, connecting it to last year, you can actually see it during a solar eclipse.
Yes.
When the photosphere, the opaque part of the sun is blocked, then you see the gases around it, and those are the gases that are about 1,000,000 degrees.
What was that? We saw some plasma thing, right? When we were looking at the total
So
solar
those
eclipse?
were the prominences. Those are sort of like these arches of material that is basically trapped in magnetic fields close to it on the photosphere. And we think that it is these kind of processes that are heating somehow the corona. Mm-hmm. And so solar probe, this Parker Solar Probe, it has gotten very close. It's gotten to about like if I remember correctly, 3.8 million miles above the photosphere. Now the sun is about 93 million miles from us. So this is the closest that humans have sent anything that has survived. I mean, I don't know, maybe some satellites may have gone and burnt, but this was deliberate. And this is also the fastest spacecraft that humans have ever built. And partly it's because, it has gone through this gravitational assist, and sun is a big gravity thing as well. So it actually goes around close to around 430,000 miles per hour.
So how long did it take to get? It's already at the sun, even though it left on Christmas Eve day?
Oh, it has. No, it didn't leave at the Christmas Eve day. It was there over there, but it has been going for a couple of years. And in fact, it actually took a gravity assist from Venus, and I think 2 assists from Venus, and now it is around the sun. But the question was, will it be able to survive? Because you would be experiencing extremely high temperatures. It does have a thick shield, which is about 4.5 inches thick, carbon-based shield, which can withstand about a couple of thousand degrees Fahrenheit temperature. So that's what it's supposed to, so that it doesn't damage the instruments. And when it went close to the sun, that's the closest approach of a spacecraft by humans on December 24th, we were not sure if it comes out, whether it's alive, whether it survived those instruments or not, because this is the first time ever a spacecraft has gotten that close. And so we were waiting, or by we, I mean astronomers were waiting for the signal to come back, and on December 27th, right on cue, it actually sent 4 signals to say, hey, I'm okay. And that is amazing. And in fact, the measurements that it sent was basically, it's not the actual data, but it just sent sort of that, hey, all the things are working as they should. And what that means is that the data that it was supposed to have taken, that has also been taken successfully. And on January 1st, on New Year's of 2025, it sent some more data as well. And that is telemetry data about where it is, how things are working, and so on and so forth. So we know everything worked fine. And later this month, it's going to send the scientific data when it will have the right orientation. It's not that straightforward. I mean, as you can imagine, it's far away, so the antennas have to be aligned in the right way. And so this month, we are expected to get the data of what it measured in its closest approach.
So, when I drive to your house and get ready for this conference, our little chat, I have a little video conference in my car, and certain places in Amherst, I drop the signal.
That's right.
So we're all used to this with our technology here. When you send a probe 90 million, not 93 million miles away, you have to wait till can you hear me now, before it can send that information back. That's the delay, because it doesn't send.
And also which side you're on.
Right. So if it's on the other side of the sun, there's no way it's going to get.
That's exactly right. I mean, it has to have the right orientation for it to send sort of this information. And I think it's the orientation of the major antenna, the one that got the data. It aligns with the Earth and where the Earth's detectors are, and so on and so forth. So that will be coming in. But if I can connect this to one other study that came out last year, in fact, last month,
which is both last year and last month.
That is true. And that was that we don't know when or how often, how frequently stars like our sun produce these huge flares. So like the solar storms that I mentioned. And so astronomers call this super flares. And those could be very damaging. But the question was, well, how frequently do they happen here with our sun? And it is hard to get the records for that on Earth. So a lot of things that we get from geological records, we can actually figure out things. But this kind of flares, it's hard to get the records out. So there has been a debate. How often? Once in every 1,000 years? Or when do these mega flares, super flares happen? But a new study that came out, they actually looked at the data from Kepler Space Telescope, which used to sort of look at exoplanets. So it was studying variations in brightnesses of stars because if planet comes in front of it or not. So they have a huge data of variations of brightness of stars that they looked at. So this particular group, they actually studied over 56,000 sun-like stars over and this is from the data of the retired Kepler telescope. And they looked at it, those sun-like stars, how often do they have flares in the lifetime that they observed, when the Kepler's telescope was there. And it comes out that about once every 100 years, you would have a major flare event, and which is about 30 times higher than previously estimated. I mean, in some sense, we have to be ready for that, because a Carrington event that I mentioned was, I think, in 1859.
And it knocked out the telegrams at the time?
At the time, yeah, telegraph machines at the time. So If such an event happens today, it's going to be extremely disruptive, and we have to get ready for that. But
How do we get ready for it? What do we just shut everything off? Like unplug all of our computers? Don't we only have 9 minutes from when a flare happens from the sun to get to the Earth? That's how long the speed of light takes for us to get here?
Right, but remember, we were getting some forecasts about the solar flares.
Right.
And we could actually see, hey, when is the sun active? And you can actually see, hey, this is a region, for example, on the sun that is becoming a bit more active. There are some magnetic fields in there and so on and so forth. So I think this is what we are trying to understand. What happens when a large flare takes place? What happens before that? Can we predict it? A little bit like you can think about it like earthquakes. Sure enough, when earthquakes happen, they just happen. But on the other hand, people can actually, there are detectors now, as we understand more in terms of the motions of plate tectonics, we go like, and we also know that
might happen soon.
And we also know the locations, right? Where it might happen, or with volcanic eruptions. People have now a better idea. It just doesn't happen usually. We are surprised when a large eruption happens and there was absolutely no signal coming, which still happens. And that actually goes into the data for understanding the next one.
Right.
So you can think about it in the same way that when we are looking at the activity on the sun, we can actually predict, okay, well, here is sun is on the active phase. Hey, here are some magnetic regions in the sun that are merging together, for example, and that could cause a large flare to happen. And if that happens, you can actually shut down some instruments. You can point satellites away from it, and you can go out and look for some great northern lights, a great aurora borealis. So you can do all of those things, but this is the process of learning. What I like about these two stories is that when you look up in the sky, you see these point-like things, and humans have looked at it for thousands of years, and you're like, hey, what are those? Well, if you want to understand what those point-like sources are, Parker's solar probe just went very close to one of those. It just happens to be very close, so we actually see it as a ball. But it's the same star or the same type of star that actually you see up in the sky. So that is what we are learning. But if you want to understand how our sun is going to behave, well, you look at a lot of them, like astronomers did with the Kepler Space Telescope, and they can actually predict when our sun, for example, is going to misbehave, and it looks like every 100 years or so, you can expect a major flare. So on a small scale, getting close personally with the spacecraft that humans built, all the way to large-scale data of 50,000 stars, they're all telling us about ourselves and about our own sun.
I like to misbehave once every 100 years too, so I'm coming up.
I think you've misbehaved already quite a bit. I think you've used that one.
All right, I got 75 more years to go before I have to misbehave again.
Oh, one more thing. I should mention that Parker's solar probe is going to get this close again twice this year, once on March 22nd and again on June 19th. So it's going to be taking twice the similar kind of data, and it will depend upon what we learn from first time in order to see how they can tweak it to learn more information second and third time.
And then when it's done, are they going to just drive it into the sun and burn that thing up? Because that would be kind of fun to witness.
I think so. I haven't looked at it, but my guess would be yes. When spacecrafts when they're orbiting places like Jupiter's moons, for example, or Saturn's moons, they try not to crash it onto the moons because there is likelihood that there might be potential of life over there, and our spacecraft can contaminate it, and so they crash it into Jupiter or Saturn. And they've done that before with Galileo and the Cassini spacecrafts. But in this case, unlike those beings in the sun, I think that should be okay. So my guess is, yeah, that would be cool. You get some data from that as well.
Now to check in on the leadership helming the ship that is the city formerly known as the town of Greenfield, Mayor Ginny DeSorgher on her 1-year anniversary.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, offering solar options, energy security, and solutions for the local community. Learn more at northeast-solar.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family business with experienced craftsmen offering wood, vinyl, and composite windows. windowworldofwesternma.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413, and we welcome back to the show the mayor of Greenfield, Virginia DeSorgher. Mayor Ginny was sworn into office for a 4-year term on January 2nd, 2024. So we are here a mere 4 days after the completion of her first year in office.
In addition to her mayoral duties, she currently serves on the school committee as a full member as designated by the city charter. Virginia is the 4th mayor of Greenfield following the former mayors Christine Forgy, William Martin, and Roxanne Weedgardner.
The mayor joins us now. If you remember, back in the fall of 2023 in November, you won, Mayor Ginny, in a landslide that I think was a surprise to many people, challenging an incumbent mayor as a relative political newcomer, especially to the city of Greenfield. But for those who aren't as familiar with Greenfield politics, remind our listeners what led to your decision to run for mayor back in the fall of 2023.
Well, I had served on city council for 4 years, and there was some political unrest in our community, and many people felt it was time for a change. So we looked up and down the aisle, and actually I asked former Mayor Chris Forgy and Dan Gwynn if they were interested in doing it, and they didn't want to take their turn again or right now. So I said, I've had a good life. I'll step up and give it a try.
And what were you doing? You were on the school committee, but what were you doing professionally before that?
A registered nurse. I ran an emergency room in Metro West Medical Center, Natick and Framingham for many years, and then stepped out of that after 3 back surgeries to be a grandmother of 9 and volunteered in many things in our community, and then got into politics a little bit. Planning board first, Disability Access Commission, and city council.
I mean, you have 9 grandchildren. It doesn't seem like that would be any less work on your back than working the ER.
Yes, not really. And my daughter, my daughter in Pennsylvania, she has a 6-year-old and twins that they just turned 3. And she actually was not really happy that I was doing this because she was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to get down as often, which that's been a little true.
Yeah, but they have to come see you now. You are the mayor of a city known as the town of Greenfield. Right. And as we mentioned, you've just completed your first year. You wrote a piece in the Greenfield Recorder, which has an excellent section that I still love to read frequently called My Turn, where different folks from all aspects of the community write a short opinion piece for the paper. And in that, you went through many of the things that you felt were some of your achievements in the first year in 2024. Now, as we enter into 2025, what are some of those that you want to highlight on this show, Mayor DeSorgher?
Well, I'm delighted that we have a wonderful new police chief who is very much grounded in working with the community. We see some community policing, and he's doing a wonderful job.
And let me stop you quickly right there, because much of the controversy surrounding the last mayor had to do with the chief of police and a lawsuit and discrimination. And I think that is where many people in town wanted some sort of change. And that is something that you then were able to bring forward in this first year. Tell us about the new police chief.
So he's doing a fabulous job. I asked him right away to see if he could show a downtown presence, because that's what people were asking for. And I can't tell you how often we see him downtown. And he is right into things, sort of bringing this police force into this century. And he's doing a great job. And I have great confidence in him. We're having a downtown substation that's right near just Wild Roots, that little restaurant on Main Street. So we are, he's working on opening that. And he and a couple of the police officers have just done a lot of the handiwork and carpentry work to do up the regular police station. We couldn't find somebody. We put that out for bid and couldn't find a contractor to do it. And so we have our own central maintenance department and some of the police officers that were volunteering their time to actually put that work into our own police station. I mean, who does that? Good people. So, so that is one of the. I would say that was one of the big accomplishments, and also we have opened a warming center. That was something that I was very concerned about because we do have a lot of homeless folks, and we started planning for that in August because I thought one thing I knew for sure was that winter would be coming. And when I got in last year in January, we didn't have a plan for what was going to happen on the cold nights. So when I took office, the shelter was full the days in, and we had unhoused folks. So that was just a wonderful story. We had a couple of meetings, and in our Zoom meeting, so we had the whole meeting room full, and probably about 20 or 25 people online. Folks from all different social service agencies, and I'm just so proud of everyone. Paul Leslie from the Salvation Army said that we could use his place, and the Medical Reserve Corps, they volunteer for different shifts, so we do it from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. just on the coldest nights. And, we split it into 3-hour shifts, and we've had, wonderful volunteers. A city councilor's done some shifts. I've done a couple of shifts, and police and fire as well, stepping up to the plate. So we have that open on the coldest nights, and thank God that we have it for this week.
Mm-hmm. How many people were in that shelter when you were there volunteering, Mayor DeSorgher?
5 to 6.
Uh-huh.
And, I don't know what the census has been every night, but they come and go a little bit. And the Salvation Army has been wonderful. They have hot coffee, and, folks bring blankets and everything. It's good.
We're speaking with Greenfield Mayor Ginny DeSorgher a year after her inauguration, and doing a little recap on what's gone on in 2024 as we look forward into 2025.
Everybody's campaign ends up being is full of dreams, and that's not any sort of criticism. It's just it's what you want to bring into office. But now this first year in office, where have you seen the greatest disparity between what you wanted to bring into office and what you weren't able to enact?
One of the hard things is to know exactly what you're supposed to do. What are the important things? When I first got in, everyone was inviting you to everything. Mm-hmm. And you have to that took me many months to figure exactly what was important and what wasn't. So one of the things when you say what's hard to enact, you realize how difficult or how long it takes to do something. The elderly and disabled taxation was passed by the city council, and I know we've had people writing and saying, and why aren't you doing this right away? The wheels of government turn slowly, and it takes a little while longer to do something than you think it might. You send something in right after it's voted on, and then it may sit there for a little while, or it just doesn't get voted on or approved by the state right away, and then appointing people, it all takes longer than you think. So I think not getting things done as quickly is one of the things that I didn't quite anticipate.
It seemed like you'd just be able to go in there and
yes.
The buck stops with me, make all these things happen very quickly. And some of those things you were able to make happen. I mean, with the change in the police department, that was something that had been brewing for a little while there, and that happened relatively quickly, right?
Mm-hmm. It did.
We're speaking with Greenfield Mayor Ginny DeSorgher just a few days after her first year in office in the city of Greenfield. One of the things that came up this year back in October, and this comes from the Greenfield Recorder, after city councilors questioned Mayor Ginny DeSorgher about the state of the city's finances amid significant staff turnover at the Wednesday council meeting, the mayor released a written statement on Friday responding to the concerns. There has been some talk, and in My Turn as well, my friend and marcher for the food bank, Michelle Spaziani, wrote a My Turn column wondering about the turnover in the cities, in City Hall, and questioning when it comes to the people dealing with finances in Greenfield, why there has been so much turnover. Talk about the turnover and then about the state of finances in the city as far as you see them as mayor.
Right. Well, yes, we actually did have significant turnover, and each one of those cases was an individual case, many personnel issues. People went on to other jobs that were very appealing to them, and I have to say I'm delighted with the folks that we have there now. Mm-hmm. They are focused on serving the community, and a lot of them come with great experience. And we are marching forward with a wonderful, cheery group of transparent and dedicated people. So I'm thrilled with that. And there have been a lot of questions about that. And I'd just like to say, actually, finance is one of my things that I'm very good at. Mm-hmm. That runs in my family. And we've done a good job. We certified our free cash at a higher amount than probably in the last 5 or 6 years. And immediately we put together a group to study the new growth to make sure that we weren't missing any new growth. And we've more than doubled that, our new growth this year, thanks to Randy, our assessors. And working so hard, we've captured all of the new growth, so that is up to $640,000. And the tax rate, which is actually the thing that most citizens are really concerned about, went down. So
when you talk about new growth, tell us what you mean by that and some examples.
So new growth is, Proposition 2.5, your tax rate is based on, you can just add 2.5%, except you can also add the new growth. That would mean any new buildings or property values, you could add that to the tax base. And I had a feeling that we were missing out on a lot of building and personal property. And what our assessor, Randy, found out was that there were many, many businesses that had not had their personal property assessed for a very long time. Mm-hmm. So we brought in somebody to just work on personal property, and I think we spent about $40,000 on that. And where every year, you can see this on the Department of Revenue website, every year our new growth had been about $250,000. This year it was $649,000, thanks to a lot of hard work and planning ahead. And that you can add to the tax base. You can add 2.5% plus your new growth. So that's really going to help get us away from the levy ceiling.
And then that would then hopefully stave off Proposition 2.5 override or something along those
nature.
That cities like Northampton kind of build in cyclically. They know they're going to have to do that at some point or another. When was the last time Greenfield had a Proposition 2.5 override? Or
the last time we had an override or a debt exclusion, I think, was for the high school, and that was in 2014. That's the last time to my recollection.
That's quite a long time.
Yeah. And a debt exclusion wouldn't be something that would continue year after year as opposed to a Proposition 2.5 override, which would, right? It would be just your taxes would have gone up in perpetuity every time you make one of those overrides happen.
Yes.
We're speaking with the mayor of Greenfield just a few days after her first year in office, Mayor Ginny DeSorgher. Well, let's take a little break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more about some of the other things that have happened over the course of the last year, including the attempt to remove dams, the situation with the park bench removal that has happened in town, and what will happen in the future with the Haitian immigrants who are living in the Days Inn as we head into the second Trump administration.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Once there were blue skies.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by UMass Amherst School of Public Policy, offering graduate programs in public affairs, public policy and administration, data analytics, and computational social science. umass.edu/SPP.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monty Belmonte.
And I'm Khalees Smith.
And we are here with the mayor of Greenfield, Ginny DeSorgher. She has been mayor for 1 year. It is a 4-year term. Yes, 1 year under your belt. And lucky for you, the city of Greenfield has 4-year terms, so you're not running for office again, if that is something you would decide to do. Have you made that decision, by the way, this early on, whether you want to run for office again? Or
I have not.
That is the right answer,
Yeah.
because if you know a year in, I feel like there are other questions
Yeah,
we probably
we'll
should be
ask you that
asking.
in 2 years, assuming we're still here in 2 years.
There's a lot of assumptions happening there.
Yeah, there. Two of the issues that came up in 2024 had to do with removal. Let's talk about one of the ones that's maybe a little bit less controversial, except from a historical standpoint, the removal of dams. Why is this something that you and your administration thought was important to do with the Connecticut River Conservancy, who's housed in Greenfield? Its main headquarters is just across the street from City Hall. Talk to us about the removal of dams in the city and why this was something that was important to you and your administration.
So the removal of any dams, it is so much better for the environment. When we change the course of the river, it is not a good thing. So there are 2 dams that we are removing, and forgive me for not remembering the names of them. But
The
one
Wiley-Russell Dam is
very
one of
good.
them. Let me see if I scan this down here. I
Very
might be able to
good.
find the other one, but that's one for now. There we go.
And the partial removal of the other. And this will be so much better for our fish, the breeding of new fish. And I actually remember listening, must have been probably like 13 or 14 years ago, when this came up before. We had a public meeting on this, and there were a room full of people, and almost every conservation or person concerned about the environment, really the best thing for it is to, remove the dam. So people had come before us, and I said, absolutely, I'm in favor of this. There was a little pushback from the historical society.
Who seem to be saying things that in direct opposition to the Conservancy people, saying like that it won't
It'll turn the Green River into a trickle, I believe, is the quote.
I
that
do
is in
believe
the
that is
recorder.
the quote, and that the wildlife won't actually thrive in the way that everyone's saying it will, which seems interesting.
Yeah, so whose opinion do you follow when it comes to hearing both of those things, Mayor DeSorgher?
The scientists, yes. That was very good. Well, the scientists. And, I'm sure that that's going to be a better thing for the city.
And is it definitely happening? Is it still being proposed? Is it funded and those things? Or
They have a lot to do as far as the funding, but I believe that they thought if we gave the go-ahead and were committed to that, they felt sure that they could get the funding. And I think that the historical, I'm not 100% sure. I didn't attend their last meeting. But I think they were happy because the second one was only going to be a partial removal, and they thought that they could, could live with that. But I shouldn't really speak on somebody else's behalf. I think that's what I heard.
All right. Well, we'll see as that unfolds as we head into 2025. My favorite newspaper, playing favorites, is the Montague Reporter, a nonprofit newspaper in my town right across the river from Greenfield. And there was an op-ed in this most recent edition, Classic Town Bullying at the Bee. And this is an article that first appeared in The Light, which is a newsletter by the Franklin County Jail and House of Corrections, and it's by an Eric Poirier that said, last month in a local newspaper, The Recorder to be exact, I saw that the mayor of Greenfield, Ginny DeSorgher, made the decision to remove the table and benches at the Pocket Park on the corner of Main and Miles Street, the place they call the Bee. The town gets grants from the state to put these pocket parks in different areas. This is a really great idea. I think a place for all of the public to meet, play, rest, talk, or just to get along at. The problem is that all of the public is not welcome there, the article goes on to say, the piece, hence the reason for putting an end to the parks. Talk about the decision to remove that bench. And I will say this in light of the fact that the city of Northampton and its former mayor, David Narkowitz, ran into a similar controversy years ago where overnight, without announcing to anyone, many of the downtown benches were removed, ostensibly to try to stave off people from using drugs on the benches in a downtown area.
Or sleeping there at night.
Right.
Too.
The ACLU of Western Mass convinced the mayor that that was not a good decision, and the benches were then returned. Talk about the decision to remove the bench in the Pocket Park off of Main Street in Greenfield. Greenfield Mayor Ginny DeSorgher.
So that actually was an agonizing decision. and it was not made lightly. We had multiple complaints.
Complaints about?
Complaints about people gathering there. They were actually obstructing the flow of, strollers and elderly people walking on the sidewalk. Unfortunately, it's a great idea in a park that I just loved, but the bench and everything it was like within a foot or two of the sidewalk, and we probably had most days like 25 to 30 people were congregating right there. So when it first came up, I'd had complaints from residents and business owners about what was happening down there, and I went down. I actually would sit down there and talk with the people. There was a plug-in for a charger plug-in, and we've ordered a solar charger for down by Energy Park, but I actually told them, I said, we're going to cut that one off, but we're going to find another place for you to be that's just not right on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
And I had someone from social service down there several days, talking to folks. Of course, everybody has a right to be somewhere, but it was just, there were more and more things that were happening there, some more fights, some, drug deals that were happening, and I think maybe the day before there was an overdose at that site. But it was not a quick decision. It was probably over a couple of months, and I had talked to different people about it. But I think when it actually came, it felt sudden to people who weren't dealing with the complaints about it.
My question would be, I guess, how does the removal of the bench remove the ultimate problem, which is people are maybe dealing drugs, people are overdosing? Is this just a temporary Band-Aid on a larger problem? And is it disenfranchising people who are there and are well-behaved, are not fighting, are not dealing drugs, are not overdosing?
So it certainly doesn't fix the issue, and it doesn't. Our folks are still, our unhoused are right there. In our neighborhood, but they're not right there on the sidewalk. It actually was getting in the way of all the businesses on Miles Street,
mm-hmm.
and people weren't using that part of the sidewalk. So it's not taking that problem away. I was sort of hoping that folks would more, gravitate more towards Energy Park.
Mm-hmm. Which is right down the street.
It's right
and
down
it's
the
set back
street
off
from
of
there.
the main drag.
And it isn't that I didn't want people to, for us not to see people. It actually was getting in the way of people weren't going to Wild Roots, that restaurant, and the other, Avalon with the tea place. And it was a really tough decision. I was up till like 3:30 thinking about it, and I thought, the person from DPW that was going to be leaving, that was his last night, and we'd had several things with the police, and people strongly encouraged me to take them out, and I thought, let's see how it goes. Once the substation is down there next to Wild Roots, maybe we'll be able to put the chess table back. But everybody was right there on the sidewalk, and I know a lot of those folks.
Yeah.
I was down there talking with them, so I don't know.
That's the mayor of Greenfield, Ginny DeSorgher. We've a couple minutes left. Anything you want to hit with her before we?
I am curious about the Haitian immigrants at Days Inn who are still there, who have been there for years now due to ongoing Commonwealth-wide shelter issues. But in light of the fact that they are getting a new they have a new liaison, or still in process of getting a new liaison.
The former liaison for the town resigned, right?
Mm-hmm.
After being banned from the building. Like, it's a bigger thing than just resigning.
Yeah.
What is the city's and your office's relationship with their progress in being more integrated into the city?
So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I actually want to alert the city councils about this. They're making plans to make sure that all of the families there are housed, and Polly from ServiceNet is letting us know where the people are going. So I know this has kind of come down from the governor that a lot of these places, I think, are going to close. And each family, they're telling us where the families are going, where the children are going to go to school. We just got a notice from her the other day for 4 or 5 of the families where they're going to be. Some are going to be in Greenfield, some are going to be in Amherst. And I think we have probably about 14 families left. And I do believe that the plan is if we can't find housing for those folks, that there's going to be someplace in Northampton that they're going to, but I'm not quite sure. But people won't be leaving without a plan. And I don't know what's going to happen with that hotel after that, but I have had a couple of people come in, actually one lady that came in looking for a place. She just got out of respite, and the Days Inn took her for the night. So it's always going to be a problem with housing.
And super quick, because we've only got like a minute left, but like you're about to enter your second year. What is something that you would really love to get off of the ground this year, given the slow roll of government?
I just want to be out there actually more with the people for as many times as I can be. I loved doing the walks with everyone, and we're going to continue.
You instituted several walks with community members that you would take with them throughout the town. So yeah.
Right.
Cool. So you'll be the walking mayor of Greenfield, like Dave Musanti was the walking mayor of Northampton years and years ago.
Do it at high schools. Get them young.
Yeah, right? It's good to get out there walking.
I love our track. It's beautiful.
Well, congratulations on your first year in office. I'm sure that being mayor is somewhat of a thankless job, as you have to go grocery shopping with all of the people that are voting for you and voting against you and complaining and celebrating you all at the same time. So Mayor Ginny DeSorgher of Greenfield, we'll have you on again soon to see how things are progressing in year number 2.
Thank you.
And good luck for that year as well.
Thank you very much.
Tomorrow on the show, we will be listening with you to the funeral of President Jimmy Carter, but we will be back on the show on Wednesday, where we're going to take you to a Longhorn cow farm in Granby.
They're the cutest!
They're amazing. And we're going to have the word nerd Emily Brewster back with us as usual on Wednesday. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Clee Smith. We'll talk to you on Wednesday on the Fabulous 413.